European Union, whose name is Digital Energy, comes in. Since 2020, with the support of the European, as I just said, Digital Energy has supported digital innovation in the energy sector. Across the different editions, it has already supported more than 50 projects across Africa. And digital energy is not only about digital solutions for the energy sector. It is also increasingly about sustainable energy powering digital infrastructure. Let me give one concrete example. In Rwanda, SL Energy, which is one of our laureates, developed an energy storage solution for telecom towers using recycled battery with remote monitoring through IoT sensors and cloud technology. And I think this is a very good example for today's discussion because it sits exactly at the intersection of what we are talking about: digital infrastructure, reliability of supply, cleaner backup system, and smarter operation. So what the first phase of digital energy showed us is that solution exists. But it also showed us that pilots are not enough. The real question is now, how do we move from promising innovation to deployment at scale? And this is why we are currently building with the Alliance for Renewable Electrification a second phase of digital energy. I will put it very simply. First, the program will identify practical solutions early. Second, it will help connect the right actors. Third, it will help build the missing bridge from pilot to scale so that innovative solution can actually become backable and deployable. So, the message I will leave you with is this. If we want to scale connectivity, cloud, and artificial intelligence in a meaningful way in Africa, energy must be part of digital infrastructure planning from the start. And that is exactly the space IFD and the Alliance for Rural Electrification with Digital Energy is designed to support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cyril. I think if you're interested in the Digital Energy Challenge, also see Cyril so that you can apply for that and can know more information. You can also go to the link that he just put up. Thank you, Cyril, for helping us frame the challenge and opportunity. Let's now build on those insights to the panel. I would like to invite my panel to the stage. Please, would you give them a round of applause as they come? So interesting. I didn't think I would be sitting in the middle, but let's do that. Great. Can you hear me? Great. I can hear myself, so we're good. In this panel, we have telcos, we have tower companies, we have an C&I energy provider, and we have moneybags. Mirova Sunny Funder, who I've been calling moneybags. But yes, so I want to start with the telecom perspective. I think a lot of people who are in this session want to understand what do telcos want, and that's why we're here. So Michael, let's start with Airtel. Across the different markets where Airtel operates, where are you seeing the fastest growth in energy demand, and how are trends in rising data usage, network densification, and 5G shaping that demand? I think you can start by introducing yourself and then answer the question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Kinya. So, yeah, my name is Michael Koech. I'm with Airtel Africa. And yeah, you've asked about energy demand. And I would say anything in telecom requires some power. So you need energy everywhere, every time. So Airtel Africa we are in 14 countries in Africa, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa, so West Africa, East Africa. We currently have about 170 million customers, and so with this, there's a lot of energy demand in terms of infrastructure to actually power the network that is required to serve the customers. We have about over 50 million mobile money customers and about 81 million internet customers. So coming to your question, you've asked about where the demand is. I think the first one, of course, naturally will be the network infrastructure. So we have the radio access network. So these are the towers that you see out there. So the antenna that is normally mounted on those towers actually would require a lot of power because it moves traffic. It requires a bit of cooling as well. And so that's where the real demand on energy is. And it's because you also have to serve customers in various locations. If you have to cover the population to 100%, there has to be many of that. So I think that's the first area that you would require. I think the other one is data centers. So these are mainly, the areas where you store data. And because of the massive storage of data that you have, again, it requires cooling. It also consumes a lot of energy, to keep the servers going, as well as store the energy that is required. So that would be the second area that I would say. And then there is a core network. So for you to move information from the data center to the BTS, to the customer, again, there are quite a number of equipment there that would require reliable energy that's always available and that's always stable. So most of it would be, would depend on the traffic. It would depend also on climate because you have to cool the servers. I think the other last one that I would want to talk about is the equipment generally. So the older the equipment, naturally you would require more energy. So when you're talking about legacy equipment, it consumes more power and probably would then demand more power. If the equipment is modernized, in a way they're still new, they come in more efficient, and so there would be less demand. Some of the key factors that would influence energy efficiency would be the network traffic. So if you are in a densely populated area, for example, probably there is more internet demand, more traffic flowing through the infrastructure, and so it would require more energy. I think the other one, as I mentioned, is climate or weather. If it's hot, then you need to cool the equipment, and so in that, again, energy would be required. And then, naturally, the network density. So the more you have, like for the BTS, again, maybe in urban centers, then it require more energy. So for us, some of the sources where we get energy, of course, is the national grid in the countries where this is available and stable. We would also have, of course, standby diesel generators, and especially in rural sites where probably there is no power or the power is unreliable. And then there could also be hybrid system, which I think is the most preferred, where you have a combination of solar, batteries for storage, as well as, of course, the national grid and gensets where required. So I think, in a nutshell, that would be, where we require energy to power the network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. You've covered so much. You're leaving me with no questions, but thank you so much for all that. And I think when you were speaking, I was thinking, you've talked about the need for energy efficiency. You've talked about the growth of data centers. And I was thinking, how is this changing Airtel's perspective of the partnerships that you're seeking to be able to get this energy that you need. So how is that changing the way you approach partnerships, where you're seeking renewable energy to reduce cost from reliance on diesel? Yes, if you could speak a bit about that.
Yeah, so, I mean, as a telco, we would want to have our network, the traffic flowing through our infrastructure. But of course, definitely we cannot do that where we don't have reliable energy. And this is where partnership comes in. I mean, we are not experts in energy generation and all these things. We don't have a lot of knowledge on batteries, of course, so to say. So I would give one example. In some of our markets where energy from the grid is unreliable, we also rely on EXCO models, where we would get an organization that has the expertise, the technology, and the spread that can provide, various solutions. Of course, preferably renewable solutions where it's possible, or hybrid, or at least, to have the network powered. So I know one of our panelists will be talking a lot more on ESCO models, and then that's what works. Of course, we rely a lot on our TowerCo partners, and again, they're here to provide the passive energy mainly that would run our equipment. And so in all these negotiations, we would want to see availability, reliability, and of course, renewability of the energy as much as possible. So that's the kind of discussions that we sort of have with them.
Amazing. Thank you, Michael. Natsy, turning to you. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yes, I am Natsy. I'm working for Orange, headquarters for Middle East and Africa, based in Casablanca.
Thank you, Natsy. So Michael has talked about the need for reliability and renewability. And I would like to bring you now to help us think about the practical side and what kind of partnerships are proving effective and what lessons Orange has learned from the experience from your partners. So what has Orange learned from using ESCO partnerships to power and decarbonize Orange's telecom sites at scale?
Yeah, okay. So, how can I say it? So, first thing is, so we have around today 15,000 towers on which we have removed the gensets and put solar in turn. Actually, when I say we have, it is not us, but it is our ESCO partners who have been able to do that. What is the concept? Actually, without electricity, you don't have telecommunication. Because telecommunication waves are just electricity transformed into waves. And you can go in several places where you don't have electricity, but you can make a phone call or you can surf the internet. And to do so, we really have to have electricity available every minute of a year. On telecom side, we don't afford more than 5 minutes of interruption per year in the context where there is no electricity. So we was providing this using diesel, but this is bad for the planet. And actually, diesel is not that available because most of the time, fuel can get theft because, fuel costs a lot. So you can put your genset, you have everything in place to have your supply of electricity, and then nothing works because the fuel has been taken by somebody. And the good solution was to have solar panels in place and batteries. But the issue was if you compare the price of this kind of hybrid system or even pure solar to a genset, the upfront cost was much higher, 3 times, 4 times higher. So we had to find a way to have solar today without spending more than what we would have spent for genset. because you know we are a profit company and we have P&Ls for 1 year. So when you go to your financial guy, he always say, you very good idea, your solar, but wait next year. So this is why we introduce ESCOs. The ESCO, the advantage for them is instead of just being EPC and try to sell solar solution, we give them a long-term contract for 10 years. Now they have visibility on their revenues for 10 years. They can invest in training people because everybody talks solar, but it is different kind of skill you need to run that systems. So you have to invest in people, so you have to have long-term contract existing to allow you to invest in all this. So this is what we did. And the magical of it is we actually add the money to finance that because you are buying fuel. And if you put solar, you can just redirect the spending you have currently and even a smaller portion of it, because you can make some saving, and give it to the ESCO in long term, and everything works. So this was really success, and you have better quality, because the system is always available. You can put some backup on battery and stuff, so you have very good quality. So everything is perfect, and this is why we spread it in 8 countries, 10 countries, and we've now 70,000 towers electrified. But actually, this is not the end of the story, because we have our telecom tower with this good solar solution, but then what about the customer around? What we saw is most of the time the dimensioning we was making for the tower was not meeting when running the tower. Why? Because all the population around was coming to that place to charge their phone. And this was not accounted at the beginning when designing, when model dimensioning the system. So the thing we say then is we need our customer to be able to have their phone charged in order to use our services. So why not go one step further, instead of just installing for our needs, install something bigger to also feed the population. This is where the ABC model mini-grid started, where we team with our energy partners to actually build a bigger system that can feed all the population around. And we have a bunch of additional services. We have a smart metering. We can provide a lot of stuff. But maybe I've been too long. Sorry, when you ask me that question, so I can talk too much.
Yeah, no, you've done a really great job. And I think when I was young, I remember Safaricom doing this adverts of people who would go up to the tower sites to actually charge their phones. So it's very real and it's true. And 17,000 tower sites that have been solidified. That's a great achievement on Orange Spot.
15, not 17.
Not 17, I had 15. Maybe you should add 15. The 2,000 more. But yeah, so you've talked about ABC models and presented them as a win-win for the community, for the telco, for the energy provider. And from your perspective, what makes this partnership structure work in practice? And where do the biggest coordination and incentive challenges tend to emerge?
Okay, so thank you for letting me talk again. So the main issue you have for me when you try to set up a mini-grid, first you need your electricity, everything you have put to produce electricity, you need your electricity to be consumed, because electricity stores very expensive. It's better that you can spend it every day, because the next day there is sun, so you don't need to store more. So you want all your electricity produced one day to be consumed. This is the first challenge, and you want that electricity consumed being paid. This is one of the major issues we have in Africa, where when people consume electricity, they don't always pay. So this is what we bring. So first thing, we position ourselves as the anchor tenant. So this means that we commit to buy electricity for your mini-grid for a long period. With that, you have something in the end to go and have some financing from banks or institutions because you have the first customer, your anchor customer, which is the A, and which is us. And then you need to have some businesses customer who can consume the electricity during the day, because electricity is cheaper in the day because you don't have to store it in batteries to use it. So if you have some businesses using that electricity, this is good. So when we partner with people who want to do a mini-grid, we also provide productive use appliances that allows people to launch a business, and we provide them in pay-as-you-go mode. This means that they don't have to spend anything at the beginning. So we have the complete digital pay-go platform system to allow this. For example, in a project we have in Guinea, we are teaming with African France company called Coolbox, and they provide freezing solutions, and we can bring that solution to the mini-grid to allow to have some businesses consuming electricity during the day. So we are anchor. We accept to pay the kilowatt hour a little bit more than the average the population. You have the businesses fed by the appliances in pay-as-you-go mode to allow them start their business. And all this allows to have the C, the customer, the consumer, having electricity during the night. Because something strange is people want solar, but they want it during the night when there is no solar. And so you have to use batteries, this costs a lot and stuff. So this is the ABC model. We deployed it already with partners in DRC and in Guinea, and we are really, one of the reasons why I came to Nairobi is really to say to anybody who wants, yes, Orange can be your anchor tenant, can provide you with demand stimulation appliances, and also to ensure that people will pay, we provide smart metering connected prepayment solution, really resistant to fraud, that will allow people to consume electricity only if they have filled before a mobile money wallet.
Thank you so much, Natsy. I hope the developers in the room have heard that. Orange is looking to partner with you. Maryanne, coming to you. Thank you so much to our telcos. On the operator side, why energy is becoming, we've heard from the operators and the telcos on why energy is becoming a much more strategic issue for telecom networks. And I would like to turn to the tower companies' perspective, because this is often where the practical realities of powering sites, managing assets, and deploying cleaner energy solutions comes sharply. So let me start with you. Atlas sits at the intersection of property, infrastructure, and connectivity. From your perspective on site acquisition and property management, how is a shift toward cleaner and more resilient power changing what tower sites require on the ground?
Hi, thank you, Kinya. So my name is Maina, and I'm a site acquisition specialist and property manager at Atlas Towers. We are a tower infrastructure company. So our business model is mostly acquiring land and construction of the towers, as well as maintaining the towers and leasing them out to our good friends there, the telecos. And energy has been at the core point of making these towers run. And as my fellow panelists have said, energy has become very expensive, especially when it comes to running remote sites and rural sites that are inaccessible to grid energy. And most of our clients, they actually penalize us if the site goes down, even for a minute. And that can be expensive also on the operational side. So energy is very important now. A long time ago, let's say like 10 years ago, when we were doing like site acquisition, we would mostly look at the location and the coverage of how far the MNOs will reach like their customers. But now we are actually now looking into acquiring more space for hybrid solutions such as solar and batteries. And so this has helped us in transitioning from the diesel generators. As if you live in Nairobi, you know diesel now is the same price as the petrol, which caught most of us off guard, even though we tried to mitigate this by maybe hoarding or maybe buying more like diesel before now, the 15th, when the price increased. But yeah, so as a telco, looking at energy being one of the main components, we are now looking into more greener solutions, hybrid solutions, relying on mostly solar and battery. And at Atlas Towers, we have a green program that we are trying to get to maybe power most of our sites with solar and battery. And it's not easy, definitely, because there's the investment part, and also there's the reliability part when it comes to solar energy or the batteries. But we are well on going to there. We have a few sites that are 100% reliable on renewable energy. That's solar and the batteries. So even as we acquire the site, we look at the possibilities on how these sites can accommodate a hybrid model, not just grid, because in as much as grid can be reliable, sometimes it's unreliable, especially in rural settings, and which is not good. As I've said, the MNOs, they penalize us, and they require us to be up and running 24/7. So yeah, the transition it's good. Okay, we're heading there, baby steps. But yeah, we are trying to get to maybe net zero, diesel, like climate protection and all that, sustainability. Yeah.
Maryanne, thank you so much. I'm really curious, in your opinion, what would make deployment of clean solutions easier and faster? Because you've talked about the challenge, so what would make this easier and faster for you guys as towercos?
I think the major issue that we experience as a tower company is when it comes to maybe investment, because it's not cheap, definitely. And in our last phase right now, we're in the process of rolling out a few more sites for this year, financial year of 2026-2027. And with the help of Get Invest, so shout out to Mark, they were able to help us come up with solutions, build models that will be able to look at green energy, how much output we are putting out into the world, you know, the carbon credits and all that. They were able to help us streamline our solar processes, because initially we were not utilizing solar to the best of its ability, because solar can do so much. And yeah, so they were able to help us streamline that. And with that consultancy from Get Invest, we were able to get investment from a company called Stoa. And this has really supported us when it comes to rolling out the green energy program. And yeah, so I believe the toughest part will come from the investment perspective of things, yeah.
Thank you. So it has been funding and also the knowledge of how to go about it. I think the off-grid sector has been a bit ahead of us by a decade in coming into terms with how great solar can be, and as telcos and the mobile industry, we are coming by slowly, but we're coming surely. And I think it's really cute that the tower companies sat together and the telcos sat together. Clearly good terms here, no competition at all. Yeah, so Ravi, I want to come to you. I think Maryanne has showed us how the energy transition is playing out in Atlas, and Helios has made reducing diesel dependency a clear priority across its operations. So from your perspective, where does that transition currently stand across your portfolio, and what has been hardest about delivering it at scale?
Thanks, Kinya. The problem is when you follow three speakers, they've taken all the good points, and it leaves very little for you to say. But what I'll do is supplement some of the things they've said and also provide a bit of context. Just about Helios Towers, we are a tower company, so we build, develop, operate mobile phone towers predominantly in Africa. So we're in 8 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and we have roughly 12,000 sites across those countries. Just by way of context, to pick up on a point which Cyril made from the outset, in Africa, the digital growth story is becoming more of a power story now. And you hear this in the context, particularly of data centers, where everyone's talking about power requirements. How will we ever have the power, even in more developed countries, to actually meet these requirements? So connectivity and power cannot be separated. And in terms of this demand which we're going to see, experts say that the data traffic over the next 5 years will increase 5-fold on the continent, and various reasons for that. There's population growth, obviously, smartphones becoming cheaper, more demand for data-intensive services, and whether it's cloud-based applications, more Netflix streamers, AI-based solutions, and also greater digitization of industry and government on the continent as well. So we will see greater use for demand. The problem is this demand is coming on a continent which has a power deficit. As Cyril mentioned, half of the continent, or half of sub-Saharan Africa, doesn't have electricity access. And for us as a tower infrastructure company, so we obviously build the tower sites, the masts, but as Maryanne was saying, we provide the power for those sites as well, so that we can power the antennas which our customers put on our sites to enable them to run their network, so that the likes of you and I can use our mobile phones and the digital services which we get from them. So the unique reality for tower companies is that we operate in areas where roughly a third of the sites on the continent, in fact, are either in bad grid areas or the grid is absent. There's no grid at all. So to provide power at those sites, there's a great reliance on diesel. Diesel is the most expensive operating item for any tower company. So in terms of OpEx, that's number one. And of course, it's dirty as well. So for most tower companies, it would also be the largest source of Scope 1 carbon emissions. So there's every reason to move away from diesel. Diesel theft has been mentioned. Diesel security, energy security. There are wars going on in the world right now, and that means to be able to have enough diesel to power your sites, which, as Maryanne said, we have to all the time. Power needs to be available there 24/7, 365 days a year, so that we can provide the service to our customer, which we've contracted, and then they can serve the subscribers, because every minute there's downtime on a site, they lose money. So power needs to be there, and this is why on every site, even where there is a grid, you'll typically have diesel for backup. Now, in terms of transition for us, we've been investing heavily in hybrid solutions on our sites to move away from diesel. So that is a combination of solar, battery, smart energy solutions at grid. So a lot of investment has gone into this. Roughly 60% of our sites now have hybrid solutions. And we're seeing, as a result of that, diesel consumption coming down. and similarly, power uptime being provided there reliably for our customers. But to provide this at scale is difficult given when you're operating across 8 different markets with different geographies, different regulations, different financing conditions. To scale this is difficult. Grid unreliability, I've already mentioned. We still cannot get away from diesel as the primary source. So as much as we're deploying solar batteries at our sites, diesel, at least for the foreseeable future, will be the primary source, and that's what we need to get away from. Similarly, costs, in more rural areas where you need these solutions more than anywhere else, that's where it's economically not always viable to invest in clean energy, because for our operator customers, they look at revenue per user, average revenue per user, ARPUs, and if that's not high enough, that already makes the investment case for clean energy in those areas more difficult. So that's a challenge. And similarly, regulation, which we'll come on to, but regulatory landscape is fragmented in a lot of these countries. And because of that, that also makes it more difficult to invest. It's easy for, I think, some to say we can upgrade all of these sites and provide hybrid solutions on all of them. But again, geographies vary, country to country, so it becomes an operationally intensive exercise to do that throughout. But so, in terms of transition, we're on the right path, but we're nowhere near the end of the journey.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I want to touch on something that you've mentioned that we haven't yet spoken about, which is regulatory and policy conditions. So how much do this, because you operate across multiple markets, so how much do those policy conditions shape the kind of partnerships that are commercially viable between tower companies, MNOs, and other power providers, and what reforms would help unlock clean energy solutions for you guys?
Regulation plays a key role in this, and I think when we look at regulation and policy, we've got to do it holistically across the continent, just given how diverse it is. And fundamentally, it's a commercial partnership between towercos, MNOs, IPPs, ESCO providers. But for these partnerships to work and be really effective, you do need the right regulatory environment for it. And some of the challenges we typically have on the continent, for me, the most fundamental one is that in most countries, energy and telecoms planning isn't done in one go. It's done in silos. So those who are responsible for grid expansion typically won't speak to those who are responsible for network rollout. And because of that, you see a lot of wasted resources. And one of the things I think that would solve, if you have energy ministries, telecoms regulators, utility companies getting together and planning both electrification and connectivity in one go, you'll see a better allocation of resources, and that will help reduce diesel consumption. The ABC Anchor Business Community Model was mentioned. This is one which I've always maintained can be pivotal. A lot of DFIs support and fund this model. GSMA are big proponents of it. ARE, our friends, have also been advocating this. But towercos have a big role to play here, because one of the things we're doing, to give a practical example, just across the border in Tanzania, which is our largest market, we have a good relationship there with TANESCO, the national utility grid provider. And what we've worked on them with the Universal Service Fund as well is to give them our connectivity plans and share where I mean our customers, would like to extend coverage or increase capacity. And we try and map that with where they're trying to then build grids, because as soon as a tower is connected to the grid, diesel consumption goes down massively. So you're already saving that cost just because there's more effective planning between an energy ministry and a telecoms ministry. So that's, I think, potentially if that model is rolled out, and it's not difficult, it's just better alignment and planning between government departments, I think we'll see a large difference there. Similarly, in terms of market regulation for energy, I think we all accept that PPAs, ESCOs, they have a big role to play in supporting clean energy investment for telecoms. But market regulations often make this difficult. So there are restrictions on wheeling, there are restrictions on selling energy, there are caps on energy. So already these present big bottlenecks for people who want to fund these projects. So that's difficult. Even supporting the investment case, taxation on solar equipment, for example. You've got countries who've signed up to the Paris Agreement, yet and it's going to be the private sector who helps them meet these targets. It's the same countries who are providing import duties on batteries, solar. So if they can be reduced or even eliminated, that will also make these cases more bankable. And I think the last thing I'll mention, permitting. When you want to deploy solar or storage solutions at scale, you need area. And it's not easy to acquire the land and get it permitted for this purpose. So that is another bottleneck. So anything to ease permitting in this space will drive more investment in clean energy solutions for telecoms. And I make the point, it's already happening, but it needs to happen at scale, especially if we want to meet this upcoming demand for data, which will only grow.
Thank you, Ravi. I mean, you've spoken about thank you for the example with TANESCO. That's really helpful to know. And yes, a lot of the government works in silo, and the energy and the digital departments in government works in silos, and that needs to stop. I want to move to Sawa Energy, who in this panel are the ones who provide energy, the supply that we need. We've been talking a lot about demand. So we have Sawa Energy here, who provides to commercial and industrial companies. And I mean, we've heard from tower companies about the scale of the demand and the operational challenge of reducing diesel dependency. Annette, maybe you will introduce yourself first, but I want to ask you, Sawa Energy has built a model around financing, building, and operating solar systems with no upfront cost to the client. How well does that model fit to telecom and digital infrastructure? And what is different about serving this kind of a customer?
All right, thanks. My name is Annette Mumbi. I am the Chief Investment Officer at Sawa Energy. And just as Kinya mentioned, we provide energy as a service to commercial and industrial companies. And we currently operate in Rwanda, Uganda, and now getting into Zambia. We've actually built more than 70 systems, and we've raised $26 million in capital that we are deploying across these types of projects for different sectors, manufacturing, agro-processing, schools, hospitals, but even more relatably for this panel, telcos and digital infrastructure companies. Now, I think it's great how you structured this panel, because I don't have to explain the need. I think the telecoms companies have shown why energy is such a big part of the operations, and my colleagues here on the towers side. And so what the core thing that I'd say we summarize from what they say is, we know that telco companies and tower companies, energy is there's significant loads that need to be powered. So the energy demand is there. Number two, the core business for these companies is on the telecommunications side and supporting digital and communications. Energy is not their core business, right? So any capital they would have, should be allocated to the core business, and it allows Sawa then and other energy companies to be able to support them in that sense, right? So this particular types of companies fit so well for Sawa. We have such a perfect, strong fit, strong value proposition, because what Sawa does is we've raised the capital ourselves. So we have an investment team, we know how to raise the capital. We have a model that works. And then on the other side, we have internally a technical team that can be able to assess the demand for these types of companies and design the type of projects. So what we end up is we have the capital, right? We design, procure, and then enter long-term contracts with telco companies and data centers, so that then we become their energy provider. it does a couple of things, and our proposition is zero upfront cost, right? So Michael mentioned, and Natsy, as well as Ravi, and yeah, sorry, Marine Koech, yeah, like that a key part of this whole structure is financing is a challenge, right? And so Sour Energy steps in by saying to the client, like, look, no upfront cost. We'll design the system that you need. We will fund it. We will enter a long-term 15, 20-year like contract as long as you need, which then for the telco company or the tower company, they know that their energy needs, there's like a lot of stability in terms of like the energy needs. We will provide the power and it's needed, they will pay a cost. And on our side, they're a perfect customer because we want creditworthy customers. These clients like already have the precedence of paying for energy. They want something that's renewable, like they want something that gives them consistency and not having to worry about like diesel and high energy costs, and like solar does exactly that. So I'd say it's they're one of like the clients that we work very well together. And like with examples in Rwanda, we currently power sites one of the largest data centers in Rwanda, and like switch centers for one of the telco companies there. So it's not so much theory, but like we actually do have these clients in our portfolio.
No, thank you for the examples, and it feels like your hot cake in this panel. But I want to also ask, for the developers in the audience who would also be interested in being able to provide such a service, from your experience, what are the lessons that you think are most relevant for companies who are looking to serve telecom and digital infrastructure clients?
Yeah, so we know many C&I solar companies, the model generally starts from just solar only, like solar PV panels. That's the easiest. But we know typically that wouldn't give you like 100% reliability, right? And as we mentioned, I think we've heard from our panels here, telco companies and tower companies in this case, you need like 99.999% reliability. And so for any C&I solar companies that are in the audience that are thinking about like how do we serve such clients, like reliability just has, like from the very beginning, it has to be the topmost priority. He said they're only allowed 5 hours of uptime, downtime in a year, right? So, sorry, 5 minutes of downtime in a year. So you can imagine when you're structuring such a system, like that is the first thing you have to keep in mind. So what ends up happening is your solution will likely be a mix of solar panels, some battery energy storage systems. In some cases where the grid is there, the client might still be connected to the grid, like having like a backup of the backup, and then like the very last backup is, like maybe they still maintain a generator if all of these three fail, right? But we are coming to, we are seeing a lot more systems where, solar and battery like become like the core, transitioning away from like diesel dependency or grid dependency to now having, they can have like a more like stable, solar and battery system, and like grid and diesel just become like the backup power. So I'd say, yeah, like you have to design around like reliability. And then number two, in a lot of these contracts, like she said, they're penalized for downtime, so you have to be very, in many typical C&I projects, you want to not have any penalties, and, we'll provide power and it's available, but like with telco companies, you have to be prepared for like making like harder guarantees and like having like stronger, you have to guarantee some level of performance, because then there are penalties and like its actual cost implications for that, yeah. So I think in general, that's what I'd say, and I know we'll go into like figuring out, our colleague here who also does investments, but yeah, I'm happy to speak to anyone in the audience or any like telcos or tower companies that are in our markets, Rwanda, Uganda, Zambia, who want these types of solutions, because then we can deploy them across portfolios at scale, because we have the money, so we are looking for projects, yeah.
Amazing. Talk about a high-pressure environment. 5 minutes of downtime the entire year. That's all? Okay. I think you've also mentioned about supporting some data centers in Rwanda, and I was wondering, from your perspective, how much does the rise of data centers change the kind of energy solutions that providers need to think about?
I'd say it's improved. I think we generally, telco companies and tower companies are like more the model that's known in general. But I think data centers have been, and the data center in Rwanda was one of our earliest clients. Like, it's one of the categories that like was not like a big deal or widely spoken about like 3-4 years ago, but now with the AI transition, like data centers have become a large part of like the digital and infrastructure ecosystem. So I'd say it's one of the clients that like also need that high reliability of power because of the kinds of like data they're supporting in the communication, and it would be like, I think it's quite a large ecosystem player now, which maybe a few years back wasn't something that was considered. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Brian, coming to you. Hi, Brian. Moneybags.
Hi.
We've heard about the demand and the operational realities, and some of the models imagined to meet it, but none of this scales without capital, right? So could you share an example of a telecom energy project that Mirova's Sun Funder has backed recently, and what gave you the confidence that this was ready for financing?
Okay, thanks, Kinya, and pleasure to meet you, everyone here. So my name is Brian Chege. I work for Mirova, an impact-focused fund manager, currently mapped to the emerging markets energy transition. So I'm very excited about financing the clean energy transition in particular. So I think as a starting point, from where I sit as an investor, the telecom and the digital infrastructure needs power that is not only cleaner, but is also more reliable and also financeable at scale. And for us, we truly believe this is quite possible, and that's where we've been trying to put our energies. So so that we can also see how this could work in reality. I actually have a very recent example of an investment we have done. So we invested, or we committed $15 million to a rural network as a service company called ISAT. So they're doing the hardest of the hard, the rural and ultra-rural areas. And they're actually able to put up towers in such areas. So what I think we really liked about this opportunity, and this is a foundation of what we want to see in what we'd say are bankable investments. So at the heart of it all, we usually want to see developers who have a track record, a strong track record, and not only a track record because there's many people out there, but then we also want to see people who are forward-thinking. So what I mean by forward-thinking is in terms of the tower solution, normally we have the 4 aspects of the tower. There's the active, there's the passive, there's the energy, and there's the backhaul. So we saw them thinking about each aspect and building a redundancy in each. So something that maybe may not have been talked about here was the backhaul. So to keep things simple, that whenever you're communicating through a mobile device, the information, the message, the call goes through the tower, and it has to be relayed to another tower and another tower and another tower. So normally what makes it very difficult to do such projects in the rural areas is that you're either limited to cabling to be able to get the towers to speak to each other, but something that we're also seeing of late is that we are seeing increased use of satellite backhaul. So relaying the message to a satellite which bounces it back to another satellite. So that wasn't really the special thing. What we found was that even when it comes to the satellite backhaul, they thought about a 2G and a 4G solution within the tower. So they're using the geostationary satellites, which are much further up in the sky, for the 2G, that's your voice and your message. And then for the 4G, they were using the low Earth orbit satellites. These are your Starlinks and the like, because they are much faster. So we could see, okay, these are people who, they really know what they are doing, and they've thought about a redundancy to a redundancy, and why do I why do I say this is at the heart of it all? Besides track record, you also want to see stable, predictable cash flows. And stable, predictable cash flows, there's what you put on paper, and then there's what you're seeing on the ground that is going to give me the comfort that those cash flows will be stable and predictable. Because they've built in the redundancies to the redundancies. I know whenever they get into a contract with the MNOs, I know they will meet their uptime. I know they will be paid. And that gives me more comfort to invest in such an opportunity. So you have to really think about it and future-proof it, because that's another thing that I've implied in terms of what we really liked about this opportunity, because they have both a 2G and a 4G solution built into their towers. And besides all these redundancies being built in, they're able to do it at a low cost. Because the other challenge, I'm pretty sure our tower companies here will tell you, you do not want to do O&M in rural areas if you don't need to. So you have to really think about how you're going to save on the future O&M costs, something that just works on its own. And then being an impact fund manager, we liked that all the towers that we are financing are running purely on solar and storage. They were able to do that because they also used energy efficient RAN radios. So we are seeing, like, in terms of everything that goes into the tower, they've tried to find a solution to the normal problem, and that also got them into contracts with some of the tier 1 MNOs, which also now gives me the comfort. The contracted revenue, the contracted demand is actually creditworthy. So whenever I see something of the sort, I have my checkbook ready. And I also just wanted to shout out Natsy, because the ABC model, it's something that we've really been discussing internally, I think, and it goes back to also the impact side, because we keep talking about the money side, but we also need to talk about the impact side. This is not only just a tower. This is a mini grid, and the mini grid is getting people out of poverty, because they're coming to charge their devices, they're coming to, they're connected, so they're getting mobile money, and they're trading, and they're slowly getting out of poverty. It's creating a small ecosystem there. The more money they also get, the more money they'll also have to be able to afford the solar home systems devices. So that's something that really forward-thinking sort of party is what I think really attracts us. And then lastly, just it needs to be put together nicely in a contract. We have the 5 C's of credit. I usually say there's a 6th C. The 6th C is contracts. So every party, whatever you've promised, let's put it on paper, and let's focus on what we are good at and what we can handle. So if we have those aspects in an investment, we tend to get very happy and we are ready to invest. Yeah, so that's one very good example I can give. And Kinya called me money bags. The bags are heavy. We still have a bit of funds to roll out, so we are looking for opportunities. Yeah, back to you.
Yes, I also want to, I would say, praise Sun Funder, who became now Mirova, because we had a project, an ESCO project to launch in Central African Republic. The idea is good, but no, I just explained the idea, so I won't come again on this. But at the end of the story, this guy who was an EPC, to which we said, I don't want to buy your systems, but I will give you a long-term contract, which will be called ESCO. This guy will need it to find some money to finance this. And this Sanfunder Mirova accepted to give that money in Central African Republic, which is a place where really you can search. Not a lot of people is willing to invest. So really, I really want to applaud. And something more, when we was having the discussions, all kind of, most of the time financial people ask for all kind of security, parent company guarantee, all kind of things like that. we achieved to have no external guarantee except what was described as insurance in the contract. What if this occurs? It is in the contract. What if that? It is in the contract. So it was really a very good opportunity and concrete action Sunfunder did at that time. So yes, I return your congrats.
Thank you. And there's evidence.
I think this is really cute. Also, thank you to the ARE team, because we are a group of people who admire each other and admire the work that we're doing and show up for each other. I mean, yes, investing in Central Republic of Congo is hardly ever easy, and I mean, Mirova, that's a really good job. Brian, I just have like one question. I know we're running out of time, and I think we might not have time for questions from the audience, but I do want to ask you like this last question. We've spoken a lot about telecom infrastructure, but data centers are also a growing part of this demand story. So from an investor perspective, do data centers change the financing picture in any important way, whether it's in terms of scale, reliability, or expectations, or the kinds of power arrangements that become viable?
I think when it comes to data centers, it just exacerbates the situation that we've all discussed over here, because data centers are way more power hungry, way larger scale. So everything we said here just applies. And just to emphasize, if we think about where we are going as, together as the whole world, we are talking about fourth industrial revolution. We are talking about AI. We are talking about augmented reality. We are talking about all kinds of interesting things. For us, we do not want to be caught at the tail end of things. The world has changed, and we stuck to our cookie cutter mentalities, and now we really don't know what to do. So I think for data centers, yes, it's the same blueprint that we've mentioned. We just need forward-looking parties. We need to think about that in future. And then if we all sit together, and I think it's nice that I also sat in the middle, because financing is also like the glue that holds everything together. Yeah, there's no problem that can be solved. So it's also something that we are looking heavily into, and yeah, we have the funding. So if you're forward thinking, please just come.
Amazing. I don't know if we have any questions for the audience. We might take one, but if not, I'm happy to do a parting shot from my panelists, just in terms of what you would say determines whether digital growth becomes a driver in stronger energy systems rather than a strain on them. I mean, last week we saw the US federal government decide that data centers need to declare their energy usage. The same with a lot of European countries, and the European Union also deciding that they need to declare what's their energy usage. And I'm wondering for you, across the panel, what do you think in terms of the way forward to ensure that digital infrastructure does not become a strain? And I see, Ravi, you're happy to start.
Try and do a good thing by offering the mic, Kenyan speaking. Look, it's clear from this discussion that we've got to deliver megawatts and megabytes together, right? Power needs to be there for us to really fulfill the potential of connectivity so that everyone can benefit from it. In terms of, you mentioned reporting, as a listed business in the UK, we have to disclose our sustainability data, which includes setting carbon targets and showing how we're tracking progress against it. So it's very transparent. I think what's more difficult, or at least it used to be, is explaining to investors why, as a business operating almost entirely on the continent, you can't set things like science-based targets for carbon reduction, because they don't fully appreciate the operational challenges of working on the continent and the power deficit here. So that's been a key part, say, of my role, speaking to the investors and say, on the one hand, we need to build more sites, we need to scale, we need to bring people online to develop their social and economic prospects. And of course, we need to do that in a way which is responsible from a climate point of view, but we can't do one at the expense of the other. We've got to think of both of them together.
Thank you. Maryanne?
I think Ravi has highlighted what mostly I would have said. So, as we can see, as he had said earlier, there's such a big demand for phones. Phones now are cheaper and they are more accessible right now. And so most people, and you can do so much on your phone. People use it for entertainment, mobile banking, financial services, calling, and all that, businesses. So yeah, it's the digital revolution is here, and so there's an increased demand when it comes to the towers, to telcos, MNOs, and supplying this service to the people, and that translates to energy. And when it comes to reporting for us, especially when it comes to our investors, they usually want the numbers. For us, let me give you an example of our most recent investor. So they want us to record and report our carbon emissions, our carbon credits, how many sites are relying on hybrid models, how many are still on the grid, how many are only diesel powered. So it's kind of a new thing, especially in Kenya, because I work with the Kenyan team. We're in the US and South Africa. Especially in Kenya, we don't have such reporting systems when it comes to maybe carbon credits, climate control, sustainability, and all that. So it can be difficult, but we are trying. It's a learning step when it comes to now pleasing our investors, because Mr. Moneybags, as much as he's very enthusiastic about, Calm will give you money, they also need all this reporting, and which is important, definitely. But yeah, so the reporting side of things is important, and we as Atlas Towers are slowly embracing it as we are now.
Thank you.
All right, and I'd say, I think we're aligned. He said megabytes and megawatts will grow together. I think it's the growth that is to be expected, even in terms of new data centers in East Africa. There's already established evidence it's going to happen. Our role as Sawa Energy in this case is, our proposition remains, we want to provide clean, reliable, renewable energy so that we can support all of these energy demands to ensure that in their goals towards net zero, we do the same kind of reporting of how many CO2 emissions avoided, etc. And with that proposition that the energy we provide, the other core part of it is that it's at zero upfront cost, because we know a big challenge to companies going renewable is the upfront cost. And even after the system is installed, our proposition still remains that we will continue to operate the sites, we're the first point of contact. If the sites are down, it is our responsibility to ensure that they're up. So it, hopefully we help the star companies and telcos and data centers to take away the energy headache and the energy burden. And because that's our core business, then it becomes a thing that, is our day-to-day, and we can support them in that sense.
How I'd look at it is, going back to my previous point, I believe everyone knows where we are heading to for the world. So how we can, approach the issue of data centers, there needs to be a more collaborative approach between private and public sector. We know what the needs of these data centers will be. We know the technological needs. We know the financing needs. We'll just need to, and not wait and sit on our hands and let, say, the public sector or the policy makers try and form the policies. We need to be part of it. such that we have an enabling regulatory environment, we have an enabling legal environment. The technology service providers know what kind of energy savings are needed, because as much as we know a data center is maybe very power hungry, we can drive them also to come up with more energy efficient equipment, such that the capital need doesn't become trillions of dollars where no one will be able to handle. So I think it's just more of all players in the sector, even with the MNOs. Let's us all sit together. Let's all influence the policies and create the environment we want in the future now. So that we don't have 5 years from now, the EAIF 2030, and we are complaining about the same things. Yeah, so I think that's what I'd leave it at.
Yeah, thank you. So I think for me, looking at it overally, for us, I think the sustainability strategy and the commercial strategy are sort of aligned. They are not competing. I think we look at sustainability strategy as an enabler, because we would want to have the more than 180 million customers connected. They need to have, they need to be, financial inclusion needs to be at the core. We have over 36,000 4G sites which should be powered, and should be powered with energy that is reliable, green, and doesn't, emit or pollute the environment through emissions. So for Airtel Africa, we are also listed in the London Stock Exchange, and so part of the requirements is actually to ensure that we monitor our consumption. We talk to our partners also on the power that they give us or that they use to sustain our network, and we report all that in terms of emissions. And we've set ourselves as a target of being a net zero organization, and so it's through this kind of partnerships and discussions that we can actually achieve that. And having in mind that operating in an African country also, there's that balance that you need your customers connected. Some of our markets are the most difficult to operate, and as he said, there could be issues of security, zero connectivity if you are not there, zero energy solutions.
Sorry, go ahead.
And all that. So I think it's a balance of all to ensure that you provide your services in a sustainable manner, and at the same time ensure that those services are always available for your customers. Thank you.
Natsy, go ahead. I had a KPI to have at least one question from the audience, and since she's had her hand up since Ravi was speaking, I was like, I just can't let it not happen, so I have to come to her. But go ahead, and then we'll do her question.
Yes, so thank you for the question to come. Actually, at Orange, we targeted to be net zero carbon by 2040, and we gained a lot of already reduction. I mentioned what we done on the ESCO solarization, and actually we are really lucky to have done that, because when you look at today the increasing price of diesel, if we did not switch to solar in this quantity of our RAN locations, you can imagine the increase of cost. So ESG is an objective, but not just for reporting or to have a good ESG I would say rating and stuff. Concretely, in terms of operation, going green is better availability for our network, better cost. So it goes, for me, it's a kind of thing that goes in the right direction because it has an economical sense. It's really bring us some value added. So the second point is about data centers. So I think that when you want to put solar on data centers, do you think when we made the calculation, it is hard to have enough place, enough panels to fuel, I would say, even 20% of the needs of a data center. So you cannot solarize 100% of a data center with independently in one location. For data center, the answer is more about solar farms. We have developed, because one advantage of a data center compared to sites is that the data center is connected to the grid. It is not like off-grid solutions where you have to invent ESCOs and stuff. It is connected to the grid. So if you have green power coming from the grid, you don't have to do nothing. But we know that it is not the case in most of our countries. So in order to make the grid cleaner, we can develop solar farms. We have done, for example, at Orange, we have done 3 solar farms in Jordan. And we have been trying to reproduce the same in some African countries. But then this is where you have some troubles, because telcos are one of the most contributing customers for electricity utilities. And when you come to them, say, look, I will be very kind, I will produce my own energy on a solar farm. This will be very good for you because you have more energy to sell to other people. Just let me go and tell me bye-bye. Yeah, so I think this question needs to be tackled this way. If you sit into the question of having solar on site and things, it's different challenges. And yeah, I try to be short.
No, thank you all for your insightful. We have time just for one question, but keep it short. Also, I apologize in advance to my MNOs and Tawakos, but let's go.
I promise it's not controversial. It's a contribution. It's not working, but I'm loud enough. Carolina Barreto, Energy Access Portfolio Lead for Palladium. Since the discussion was around revenue per users in remote areas, there's already solutions for that, right? And the satellite solutions are there, particularly for those very small communities. So many countries in the last few months in Africa have removed the ban they had on Starlink, right? And there's already a lot of partnerships between telecoms and satellite solutions. So when you are, thinking about building a very expensive tower, and want to connect a very small community, right, it makes no sense. But if you're bringing a satellite solution, right, that is only a couple of kilowatts, you can connect the poorest of the poor, the people that are the most remote. So we see very exciting partnerships happening. It's not an Africa-specific problem, right? Vodacom in Europe has partnered with satellite solutions, AT&T in the US, MTN in Côte d'Ivoire, I understand, is also building those partnerships. Satellite solutions are here to stay, right? And I'm wondering if anybody here, is building those type of partnerships or thinking about providing those type of services. And if not, maybe it's a good moment to start thinking about it, particularly if we want to deliver that impact in those most remote areas. And for perhaps the other countries and government representatives that are here, but also you as telecom, right, start thinking about making the case for those countries that still have the ban on satellite solutions, and perhaps even if you don't remove the ban completely, give an exemption for those communities that are very remote, right? Because I understand.
I swear, it's not because you're satellite, but I do need to cut you off because we have like 2 minutes. Natsy, I see you have a microphone. Do you want to take it?
Yes, because she's talking telecom.
Yeah.
But I thought the question should not be controversial, no?
No, actually, it's better, much better than I thought. Satellite companies are scary to us, but it's much better than I thought, yes.
So you have different angles to tackle this. So we have been working with satellites since dozens of years, since always, you know. To do backhauling of solution, you need satellites. And we are using it a lot for remote part of the country, for people to reach. The change is the latency has decreased because now they are using lower altitude satellites, so you can make some new applications which require small latency, like conversational kind of communication. Yes, and there is Starlink, there is other LEO constellations like Eutelsat, Orange. We are working with them, for example, in Tunisia. We've launched in France. So this is not really a technology question. In terms of technology, it is adopted and stuff. But the questions are more like sovereignty of countries, licensing, regulation, because we'll pay a lot for licensing, and this fuels the economics of the country where we are present. So how do you introduce Starlink constellation or others in this licensing frameworking and financing the governments? Is it about the devices? You say poor people. So I don't know if you know the cost of one device who can communicate on satellite. I don't think it is for poor people. So for me, the technical question is already integrated. We are working within. The challenge is more about how do we incorporate all this economically in terms of sovereignty of countries, and in terms of also affordability for people.
Thank you, Natsy. Ravi, do you want to say something?
And just to add briefly to that, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. We've been working as a tower company with satellite companies for a while, just on backhaul. We're having discussions now with the likes of Starlink as well, because I think we see them as complementary in the ecosystem. In urban areas where there is need for greater capacity, more infrastructure, the satellite technology can't really compete with what, say, a TowerCo and MNO could offer. In the rural areas, yes, I mean, there's definitely a case there, and I think they're going to play a big role in helping bridge the digital divide on the continent. So very much complementary, and yeah, we're certainly working with them.
Amazing. With 1 minute to spare, I want to thank you, my panelists, so much. This has been a great discussion. And thank you so much for taking the time to come and sit in this panel. And thank you to my audience. In case you have any questions for anyone in the panel, you can chat to them on the side or use the amazing platform that ARE has created. And yes, thank you so much. And I hope you stick around for the next session.
Processing infrastructure and energy demand.